everyone, and welcome to our 8th Property Finder webinar, where we share our data as well as invite guests from the industry to help you navigate through the COVID-19 situation. First, I would like to say Ramadan Kareem, and it's nice to be here with all of you today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lynette Abad, and I'm the Director of Research and Data at Property Finder, and also the business unit owner of Data Finder. This is our 8th webinar, and like the previous weeks, we will continue to shape the UAE real estate market and help your businesses. If this is not your first time on the webinar, you will notice that Ari, our president, is not here today. He has since passed the baton to me, and I am honored to now host the weekly webinars. In case this is your first time here, let me share what we're doing in this webinar. Even with the recent increase in mobility, the COVID-19 situation is still affecting the economy, and we are all in this together. We as Property Finder want to be your best partners during this time and in the future. This is important for us because we as a company do well only if your business does well. Like previous weeks, we want to give you more visibility into what's happening in the market through our data and also help you transact more through insights. We have a lot of data and amazing data scientists who are working very hard to identify insights that can help you run your business. We will continue to share our data and insights with you today. Every week, we're taking your feedback into consideration, so our flow today will reflect what you told us last week. You told us you want to continue to hear from our external experts, so we have more for you this week. You also told us you wanted to hear more from DLD, so we will start with a Q&A session with Hiba Jabber from DREI, who will provide further clarity on how to operate your business under this current situation. Like the previous weeks, we will also share our unique data. Very quick update on the COVID-19 situation, an update on the impact we see on the UAE real estate market, but a bit shorter this week because we want to focus more on our external guests. Share some search trends with you that can also turn into actions. Then we will have our second external guest, Mohammed Bengati, who will share great insights on the current market. We will then hear about the experience from 2 of your customers that recently went through the process of buying a property in the UAE during the crisis. At the end, there will be a possibility to pose questions. Some will be answered directly in the chat, while others will be answered during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And as always, after the webinar, we'll send you an email to get your feedback. With that, let me introduce your host today. Next slide, please. Together with me, like the previous weeks, we also have my colleague, Stuart Shapley, Director of New Homes. Stuart is also running our COVID-19 response approach at the moment. We also have many team members behind the scenes, so we have a smooth experience today. Next slide, please. As per your suggestions and feedback, we have 2 guests this week, Hiba Jabber from Dubai Land Department and Mohammed Bengati, CEO and Head of Architecture of Bengati Holding. We are very excited to have them with us this week. Now let's quickly dive into the survey results. Every week we ask you if you are happy with the content of the webinar. According to the survey and the increasing number of participants every single week, it looks like you are. That's why we are here again today. On the left side, I share with you how you graded us. 89% of you thought the webinar met or exceeded their expectations. 89% of you enjoyed the variety of speakers. 94% rated Property Finder's efforts to be your best partner as good or above. Thank you for these ratings. We at Property Finder are working very hard to earn your trust. On the right side, we ask you again your view on the time to market recovery. Slightly more optimistic than the previous week, with 67% of you seeing a market recovery in less than 6 months versus the 63% from the previous week. As we said before, the most difficult part in this crisis is the uncertainty, which is reflected in these surveys. For all of us, this is why we try every week to bring you the best data on the real estate market. Now, we knew at the start of this webinar that there was going to be a lot of content, especially super relevant content from the expert guests that we have today. So looking at the time now, I have a feeling that we are going to run over, but that's okay. If you have the time, still stay on with us. I'm going to start going through the data and then introduce our next guest. So let's have a quick look at the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please. The number of cases continue to increase globally and in the UAE since we last spoke. There are now 4.4 million cases globally. In the UAE, we have 18,000 cases. However, the case per 1 million people stays low compared to other countries. Also, the pace of the increase in the number of cases is slowing down. The UAE government removed some of the restrictions more than 2 weeks ago. We obviously recommend to follow the government guidelines and to remain cautious. With that said, having less movement restrictions now could be an opportunity for you to conduct live viewings using the product we launched a few weeks ago. Also, this is a great time to get virtual tours done on your listings, especially the vacant ones. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the real estate data and trends. As you know, we have the best data on the UAE real estate market trends, and we are now going to share this with you. We will also share new and more targeted data and make suggestions on what kind of actions to take because we want to help you manage your business well during this time as well as in the future. Next slide, please. The number of listings are stable against last week, but have increased over the last 4 weeks. They've increased 3% for sales and 10% for rental. Listing views, so the amount of impressions, have increased much more rapidly over the same period. They've increased 27% for sales and 47% for rental. Listing views are the entry of your sales funnel, so this is an extremely positive sign. Next slide, please. What we show you on this slide is a summary of sales leads for week 19 in 2020 compared to the same week last year. The trends are similar to what we discussed in the previous weeks. Dubai apartments is the most impacted, obviously, as we were in full lockdown just up until 2 weeks ago. However, leads for villas are up 46% against the same week last year. Leads for villas in Abu Dhabi are twice as high as the same week last year. Leads for both apartment and villa in Northern Emirates are significantly higher than last year. Next slide, please. Let's look at the same data for rental. Most of the trends are similar to the previous weeks. Northern Emirates has more leads than last year. Villas in Abu Dhabi are up against last year by 83%. Rental leads for villas in Dubai are also up for the 3rd week in a row, 87% compared to the same week last year. Needless to say, this is a great time to wrap up on your villa townhouse rental listings as people are valuing personal outside spaces in their homes, as we have shown you in previous week's trends. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the sales transactions. So I've said this every single week, transactions that we see now likely started before the COVID-19 crisis. The average sales cycle is 45 days from beginning to end. So we should soon see the biggest impact on the sales transactions. Looking at last week, the dark blue line are transactions for 2020 and the light blue are transactions for 2019. Notice the gap between 2019 and 2020 reduced last week. Looking at off-plan and secondary, we saw an uptick in off-plan last week, while secondary remained more or less flat. Next slide, please. A new piece of information here, mortgage volume and value. Mortgage volumes were very much impacted right after the beginning of COVID-19, around mid-March. It is recovering very slowly now. Mortgage value was also impacted to a lower extent and is also recovering slowly. Next slide, please. So let me summarize what I just said. Number of listings continue to increase, sharp increase in listing views in the past 4 weeks. Previous trends in terms of sales and rental leads, mostly the same. Dubai is still impacted in terms of sale leads for apartments. Sale leads for villas up by 45% to 115% in all Emirates against last year. The Northern Emirates continue to outperform last year across all categories, sales, rental, apartment, and villa. And rental leads are up 85% to 195% across all categories except apartments in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Sales transactions are still below 2019 levels, with the secondary market being the most impacted. Mortgage volumes and value are slowly recovering. Next slide, please. At Property Finder, we want to provide you with the most relevant data that will help you take the right actions for your business. This is why this week we want to show new pieces of information on search trends that will help you take immediate actions. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at new projects on the Property Finder portal. As you know, there is a dedicated section for new projects, or also referred to as off-plan projects. The chart on the top shows the visits of this section, taking 1st of February as a reference point, so value is 1 on the 1st of February. When COVID started mid-March, the number of visits to the new project section decreased by about 40%. In the last 6 weeks, it has increased by 69%. It is now back to the levels of early February, so pre-crisis times. So what should you do? Increase your new projects inventory and boost your new projects listings. Next slide, please. We also looked at hotel apartments. The chart on the top shows the visits of the section, taking 1st of February again as a reference point, so value is 1. When COVID started mid-March, searches and leads decreased by about 30%. In the last 5 weeks, searches almost doubled, leads more than doubled, and both are now above the levels of early February, so pre-crisis times. So what should you do? Increase your hotel apartment inventory and boost your hotel apartment listings. Next slide, please. At Property Finder, we develop innovative products to help you run your business. A few months ago, we talked about virtual tours. So here's a quick reminder. New virtual house tours are available on the Property Finder website. They give potential clients the opportunity to tour properties without leaving their home in a safe and legal environment. It's super easy for you to use. You just record a video tour with your phone or submit an existing one, upload the video to YouTube, send us the link to your tour plus your listing ID to viewings@propertyfinder.ae. There are guidelines on how to do this on the Property Finder Hub, which you can find on propertyfinder.ae/hub. The reason why we emphasize this today is because the number of virtual tours increased by more than 3 times in the last 3 months. And there is a good reason why you love this tool so much. Users who view a virtual tour are almost 3 times more likely to convert into a lead. So what should you do? Upload virtual tours to your listings. Next slide, please. Let's recap the user's insights. So insights from this week. New projects page views are back to early February level and increasing rapidly. Hotel apartment searches are back to early February levels and leads up by 50%. Virtual tours can boost conversions by 3 times. Insights from last week. The trend towards villa townhouses continued in the first week post-lockdown and continued all throughout the crisis. Some communities are now back to pre-lockdown levels in terms of leads and searches, such as Arabian Ranches, Dubai Hills Estates, Al Reef, and Saadiyat Island. To see the full list of communities and trends, please log into Data Finder, where you will find all of this data plus more. There is no significant change in consumer search behaviors around maximum and minimum prices. The percent of searches for pool and garden continue to increase. Virtual tours can support you generating leads. Users who view a virtual tour are almost 3 times more likely to convert into a lead, and 1 in 4 users who see a virtual tour end up watching it completely. In rentals, payment terms are significantly more important now, so this is the time to get your landlord to accept 6+ more checks. Also, as you remember from last week, the search for short-term rentals increased by over 200% in Dubai during this time.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Lynette, today we've got Chris and Carly Marriott, who are a couple of homeowners who, during the crisis, have managed to complete on their new property. So thank you for joining us, Chris and Carly.
Hi, you're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So we've got a number of questions. I think the first one is, what kept you in the market during the crisis, and what was the biggest challenge that you actually faced on trying to complete?
Well, we've been looking to buy in Dubai for a couple of years now. We had started the process before this whole COVID-19 thing had become a huge issue. We signed the MOU around about 2 weeks before the UAE went into lockdown. So we held the faith that things would, although probably take a little bit longer, that as most of the panelists have been saying today, eventually the market's going to recover. This is a long-term purchase for us anyway. It's not a short-term investment property. We intend to live in the place, hopefully until I hit retirement. So, but yeah, basically it's a case where we were so far down the stage that we thought that it would be best to continue and see it through to the end. Biggest challenge, I would say, has probably been the fact that the lockdown has just created so much uncertainty for everybody in the industry. The fact that the procedures have just had to, well, for a long time they stopped completely, waiting for the Dubai Land Department to get the registrations going again. You find yourself in that unique position where we're actually paying for the property that we own, but we still haven't been able to get our DLD appointment, so we don't legally own it. Which is a little bit of a challenge, you could say.
So we're still waiting on the transfer of ownership. The property documents have been collected by our bank. The NOC will be this week, and then we're waiting for our appointment. So we've kind of been on standby for about a month or so, haven't we? Just waiting for everything else to fall into place.
Okay, so a lot of waiting, but also a lot of change.
Yes.
Going through change, obviously, it's important to have good advisors. So how would you say your because I believe you used a mortgage broker through the process. How would you say they assisted you during this time?
Do you want to?
No, go on, actually.
I think the reassurance from them with the daily communication. So every day we would have conversations, just basically talking about the next steps, how things are going, and basically just kept the flow of the communication really to keep us involved with everything that's going on, so we didn't feel like we were kind of just sitting around and nothing was happening. So and also with our the real estate broker that we were using, he was very good at also keeping the communication between us and the seller as well, so that we didn't feel like we were just kind of floating around and just sort of what's happening next. They just kept that communication every day, wasn't it? Every day. So yeah, so we know exactly what was going on, the next steps, and also for them as well, helping us push things along and trying to make sure that everything was being done that could possibly be done, rather than just waiting around. So
communication has been key
Yeah.
during this time, I would say.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think during times of change, you're right. Communication is vital, and it's great to hear the proactivity of the broker and the mortgage advisor as well there, helping you through these difficult times.
Yeah, we've had a very good experience.
Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you, Chris and Kelly. There's going to be, as Lynette said, there's a lot of questions coming up. There may be some that come up for you, and we'll come back to you shortly. But I'm going to hand back now to Lynette for the Q&A.
No worries.
Cheers.
Our webinar attendance remains quite high despite the mobility in the UAE increasing and despite the fact that there is more business than a few weeks ago now, as you have also seen in our data. We all know that your time is very valuable because you need to close business. Therefore, are working very, very hard to make this the best hour of your insights for every week. A huge thank you to our external guests as well. Thank you, Hiba, Mohammed, and the Marriotts. We are doing these webinars for you, and we have listened to your recommendations in the surveys. Therefore, I am so excited to announce a new webinar series we are launching in partnership with the Dubai Land Department. The format will be shaped by you, and by more details will come soon, so stay tuned and please continue to send your feedback as we want to make this webinar as relevant as possible for you. We have the best data in the UAE real estate market. Much more than the information we shared today is available through Data Finder, and as you know, we have also given free access to Data Finder to all our clients. Please ask your account manager if you haven't activated this access. We also publish these webinars on our hub if you want other people in your company to see these insights. And as I always say, we want to be your best partner during this time and also in the future. We only do well if your business does well. We will ask for your feedback by email in a few minutes. This is so we can make this webinar even better next week. So please answer our survey, and we promise we'll try even harder to be your best partner. Stay safe and see you next week. Bye.